He said, I'm going to pour you out, but I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to give it to you. So I can pay my tithes all my life, and then finally God said, you ready for the blessing? And get the blessing when I'm 60 years old. Are y'all still with me? All right, it's one thing. Somebody say one thing. One thing. Somebody say one thing again. So I asked God, what is the one thing? He said, turn to Proverbs 10 and 22. Turn to Proverbs 10 and 22. Because Proverbs 10 and 22 deals with this one thing. Somebody say one thing. God going to give me one thing. All right, Proverbs 10 and 22. I want someone to turn to Proverbs 10 and 22. I want someone to just stand for me real loud for us. I know this is a little different from y'all today. This just worked with me a little bit. Proverbs 10 and 22. What does it say? Somebody read it. There you go. You got a nice, strong voice.
The blessing of the Lord.
The blessing. What? The what? Not the blessings. But the what?
The blessing.
The one thing does what?
It maketh rich.
It maketh what?
Rich.
Rich.
And he added no sorrow with it.
And he added no sorrow with it. In other words, God says, if you pay your tithe, I'm going to give you one thing. And that one thing is going to make you rich. And the reason, the way you're going to know it came from God, because there ain't going to be no pain or no sorrow attached to it. It's like the people who live in big houses and drive new cars. And everybody think they got it going on, but don't realize that they ain't got no money after they pay their bills. See, this is not that kind of thing. He says, this one thing will make you rich and will add no sorrow. There won't be no pain. That when God releases it into you, if you know how to use it, it will make you rich. And there won't be no pain, no agony, no worry, no up all night, pacing the floor, not taking a pill to go to sleep at night. It'll make you rich. Anybody want to be rich in the house? Oh, y'all don't want to be rich? I told somebody, anybody want to be rich in the house? Let me tell you why you want to be rich. You want to be rich. It ain't about all of that. It's about a good man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. It ain't about you living in a mansion and driving in a limousine. It's about when you die, we don't not worry about it. Do we have enough money to pay for your funeral? It ought to be, we got enough money for your grandchildren to be blessed, and your great-grandchildren ought to be blessed, and your great-grandchildren ought to be blessed, and everybody in your family ought to be blessed. Everybody ought to be blessed. Look down the road and say, I want everybody in my family to be blessed. Everybody wants it. You don't want your children growing up struggling like you struggle. Do you? Do you want your great-grandchildren struggling like you struggling? The Lord will make a way somehow. He's already made a way. He's already made a way. In every last one of us, I'm not going to ask you whether you pay tithes or not, but everybody in here that pay tithes, there's one thing God has already put in you. There's one thing that God has already put in you, and that one thing is already destined to make you rich. But it ain't in your mouth. It's in your hand. It's not in your mouth walking around talking about God going to make me rich. It's in your hand. Can I use an example? Some people, how many of y'all know how to cook? Come on, don't be shy. You know how to cook? Cook real good, don't you? And when you cook so good, everybody show up and take place. Isn't that right? I mean, it looks like you got to go buy $300-400 of groceries. Everybody, oh, she cooking today. What you cooking? What you cooking? A little this, a little that. Well, can we come by? It's bad enough to come by and eat a food for free, but to take a plate with you? Come on now. Then some of y'all go say, well, you know, my husband, he couldn't come with me because, and my kid, can I take a plate for my husband and take a plate for my kid? Y'all walking out with 4 or 5 plates.
That's how they do business.
One person cook real good and have 20 people over the house on Sunday, but that person never thinks about this. One man could cook and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up a place called Golden Corral. and folk gonna pay me for my good cook. You never thought about that. Mm-hmm. And you never thought about that. Look at that. Said one thing is in my hand. One man can cook. Another man says, I can cook. And the one thing gonna make me rich. And it's called golden corral. One man says, I like to work on computers. I'm just good. And when everybody has a problem with their computers, they call me. One man is called Bill Gates. And who is Bill Gates? Microsoft. One person says, I just know how to do repair on computers. One man called Steve Jobs. And who is Steve Jobs? Somebody says, you know what? I know how to make pizza so good. And every time I make a pizza, people in the neighborhood want to know when is I'm going to make some more good pizzas. Because my pizza's better than Pizza Hut. One man cooking 3 pizzas in the neighborhood. One man says, Domino's. Then everybody's got the one thing. One person fixing hair in the kitchen. One person fixing hair, but they got shops all over the city. And they ain't fixing hair no more. Because this one thing that God gave us is intended to make us rich. And it's in our hand. One man is a carpenter. One man owns a construction company. Y'all looking at me. Y'all want me to just go ahead and preach and get on the out of the way, right? Let's just go ahead and hoop it on up and let us jump on and then we're going to be all right. I hope you do it at the end so we can get out of the groove on. Listen, you have one thing in you, and it ain't based on your age either. It has nothing to do with age. It has something to do with age. Maya Angelou would have stopped doing poetry a long time ago. Did the one thing be poetry? Yes, it was, Mr. Smith. God gave her one thing. You know what that one thing was? Was poetry. What did the poetry do? It made her. And some of y'all got poetry, got notebooks full of poems. And guess what? Don't nobody know that you write poetry. And Maya Angelou took her poem, and her poem took her to the White House. And she has read poems for presidents. Let's keep going. Let's go into text. So then, in other words, I want to know, what then does a tithe do for me? What does a tithe do for me? Can I teach you what a tithe do for me? First, it gives me what? The blessing. That's the one thing, right? It gives me that one thing. But here's what else it does for me. Does for us. Let's look at verse number 11. Verse number 11 says, and I will rebuke the devourer for your sake, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Which means that when you pay your tithes, God lets you keep what you have worked for. God lets you keep what you have worked for. In other words, when the devil shows up and tries to do anything to hurt what you worked for, God says in verse number 11, I'll rebuke the devil and tell the devil that he cannot have what you have labored for. Are y'all still listening? It's in the text. Look what it says. It says, I shall not destroy the fruit of your ground. Your fruit comes from your labor. And God says that I'm going to protect the labor of your hand. So when the devil shows up and try to tap your labor of your hand, that he will rebuke the devil so that the devil cannot destroy what God has blessed you to labor for. Number 3, he says, and your vine, and neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field. said the Lord. Which means